There is a moment in a woman's life that no one ever announces. It does not arrive with thunder, it does not break down doors, it slips in quietly, the way fog enters a valley before sunrise, almost without weight, almost without sound. And yet, when it has passed through her, nothing inside her remains the same. She did not decide it, she did not plan it. Something in her simply stopped reaching, stopped waiting, stopped bargaining with the silence of others. And on that very day, while she expected nothing, while she pursued no one, while she watched no horizon for a returning shadow, the world began, almost imperceptibly, to turn its gaze toward her. You may have already felt this shift, or watched it cross the face of a woman you love. What you are about to hear touches a region of the psyche that Carl Jung approached carefully, almost reverently, because he understood that the deepest transformations of the soul are never the ones we command. They happen to us, they unmake us, and then, when we believed ourselves emptied, they reveal that we have in fact become whole. Look around you for a moment. Notice the women who, somewhere past 40, seem to walk on different ground than the rest of the world. They are not louder, they are not adorned with anything special. And yet, when one of them enters a room, the air rearranges itself, the way it does when a tree falls in a distant forest and the birds, miles away, fall silent for half a breath. There is in their bearing something forested, something patient, something that does not need to be witnessed in order to exist. They have crossed something, that is the only word for it. They have lived through years of waiting for messages that came late or never came at all, years of decoding silences as if silences were sacred texts, years of mistaking crumbs of attention for nourishment. And one ordinary morning, without ceremony, the architecture of all that hoping simply collapsed, not into despair, into clarity. This is the first truth that asks to be looked at without flinching. The hope we carry toward another, the hope we have been told is romantic, is often not love at all. It is hunger wearing the costume of love. It is a long, unspoken plea, sent across the distance, asking the other to come and inhabit a room inside us that we ourselves have not yet entered. And the men, or the partners, or the friends on the receiving end of that plea do not consciously hear it, but their nervous systems do, their ancient instincts do, and what they retreat from is not the woman herself, but the weight of the demand she did not know she was transmitting. Let me bring you closer to a woman. We will call her Hélène. Hélène is 47, and for 12 years she loved a man whose love arrived in fragments, like letters torn before being sent. He would appear, he would promise, he would disappear, and she would wait, polishing the silence between his returns until the silence itself began to feel like a kind of relationship. She studied his moods the way astronomers study faint stars, hoping that if she looked long enough, a pattern would emerge, a meaning would crystallize, a future would become legible. The years thinned her without her noticing. And then one Tuesday in November, the kind of Tuesday that has no reason to be remembered, Hélène opened her kitchen window and inhaled the cold air, and something inside her, very quietly, let go. It was not a decision, it was a release. She made her coffee, and for the first time in 12 winters, she did not glance at her phone. She did not arrange her morning around the possibility of his name appearing on the screen. She simply existed, alone with the steam rising from her cup, alone with the grey light of November, alone and, strangely, not lonely. 3 weeks later, the man who had spent 12 years being unreachable began to write to her with an urgency he had never shown. He wanted to see her. He wanted to understand what had changed. He could not name it, but he could feel it, the way an animal feels the change of season before the leaves have agreed to fall. Why does this happen? Why does the world so often turn toward us only when we have stopped turning toward it. This is not a coincidence, and it is certainly not a reward, as if life were a teacher handing out grades for emotional discipline. It is something far older, far stranger, far more precise than that. Jung spoke of the energy of the psyche as something real, something that flows, something that radiates outward, whether we wish it to or not. And here lies the quiet revelation. As long as a woman emits the energy of lack, she draws toward herself the choreography of avoidance. The moment she emits the energy of fullness, the choreography reverses, and what was distant begins, almost against its own will, to move closer. We like to believe that we communicate through our words. We like to believe that what we say matters more than what we are. This is one of the great illusions of modern life. In truth, beneath every conversation, beneath every glance, beneath every text message and every silence, we are constantly broadcasting a state, and that state is read by the people around us long before our sentences finish forming. A woman who hopes, in the unhealed sense of the word, broadcasts a pressure. The pressure is not loud, it is not visible, but it is felt, the way one feels a held breath in a quiet room. The other person senses, somewhere below thought, that there is a question waiting to be answered, a void waiting to be filled, an invisible hand reaching across the space between them, and something ancient in him, something that predates language and reasoning, takes a small step backward. Not from cruelty, from self-preservation. A woman who has stopped hoping broadcasts something entirely different. She broadcasts density. She is here, fully, without an agenda hidden behind her smile, without a strategy disguised as warmth, without an expectation lying quietly beneath her welcome. Her presence asks for nothing. And in a world where nearly every interaction carries some invisible bill, the encounter with a person who wants nothing from you becomes almost vertiginous. You do not know where to place your hands. You do not know how to behave. You begin, slowly, to lean toward her, because you sense that here, finally, is a place where you might be allowed to simply exist. What does not pursue ends up being pursued. This is older than psychology. This is older than Jung. This is the way water moves towards stillness, the way light gathers in clearings, the way silence draws confession out of the most guarded mouth. Now, before we go further, I want to plant something carefully in your attention, because if I do not, the rest of this exploration will be misunderstood, and many women have walked this road in the wrong direction because of that misunderstanding. To stop hoping is not to become cold. It is not to build a wall, brick by brick, around a wounded heart. It is not to declare, with bitter pride, that no one will ever enter again. That posture, however protective it feels, is not fullness. It is armor, and armor, no matter how beautifully forged, is the confession of a fear. Men feel armor exactly the way they feel demand, because both are forms of dependence wearing different masks. Both push them away for the same hidden reason. Nor is this stopping a stopping of love. This is the most delicate distinction of the entire inner journey, and I want you to hold it gently. A woman who has stopped hoping can love more deeply than she ever has. She can look at a man with a tenderness that almost frightens him in its purity. She can welcome him with warmth. She can offer him hours of rare softness. The difference is invisible from the outside, and yet, on the inside, it is the difference between two universes. She no longer needs his response in order to feel whole. Her balance does not tilt when his attention drifts. Her happiness does not live like a hostage inside his glance. She loves, but she does not cling to the loving. She is present, but she does not dissolve in the presence. And this freedom, which no one can give her and no one can take from her, becomes the most precious thing a man can encounter in his entire life. Because, perhaps for the first time, he is met by someone who is not trying to capture him, someone who loves him without holding him, and paradoxically, this is exactly what awakens in him the deep, almost cellular desire to stay. If what we are exploring tonight is touching something in you, if you are recognizing your own reflection somewhere between these sentences, I want to invite you, gently, to subscribe to this channel and stay close to this work. Not as a transaction, but as a way of saying, yes, I am walking this road too, and I would like company along the way. Jung had a word for this slow becoming. He called it individuation, the long, often invisible process by which a person stops being the echo of others and begins, finally, to be the source of her own life. Not the polite version she presents at family dinners, not the character she performs to be loved. Herself, in her most irreducible form, the version of her that exists when no one is watching and no one is asking anything of her. Most women begin this path late. They begin it after years of giving, after loving men who did not know how to receive what they were being offered, after raising children who eventually walked out into their own lives, after tending, soothing, listening, holding, organizing, remembering birthdays, anticipating needs, becoming the quiet infrastructure of other people's existences. And then, one day, having poured outward for so long, they turn, almost by accident, inward. And there, in the inner chamber they had been avoiding for decades, they discover something that astonishes them. They were never empty, they were simply uninhabited. This is the great paradox. For all those years, they believed they needed another person to fill them. They searched in men's eyes for the proof that they existed. They begged, without knowing they were begging, for a validation that, even when given, never lasted long enough to nourish them. And then comes the revelation that what they were searching for outside had been breathing, patiently in the unvisited rooms of their own interior, all along. It only required them to sit still long enough to hear it. Clarissa Pinkola Estes used a striking image for this. She spoke of a woman who returns to her bones, a woman who strips her life of everything that is not essential, of every role she had been performing out of habit or fear, of every mask she had worn so long that she forgot it was a mask. What remains, when all of that falls away, is her structure, her marrow, her truth. That woman no longer needs to be loved in order to exist. She exists. And this simple fact, which sounds almost embarrassingly basic when said aloud, changes absolutely everything about the way she moves through the world. She can walk into a room without scanning it for approval. She can leave a gathering without having proved anything. A no can leave her mouth without an apology trailing behind it. A yes can be given without losing herself in the giving. She has become, finally, the author of her own life. And it is precisely this authorship that makes her, without trying, magnetic, because she carries something most people do not: a peaceful relationship with her own solitude. She does not flee silence. Winter evenings do not terrify her. She has learned that solitude, when chosen, is not absence. It is space, a space in which she breathes, dreams, thinks, creates and prepares, without knowing it, the arrival of what truly corresponds to her. The woman who is no longer afraid to be alone becomes the one no one wishes to leave. Look at what attracts in nature and you will notice something curious. It is never what chases. The moon does not pursue the sea, and yet the entire ocean rises, faithfully, every single night, to meet her. A clearing does not call out to deer, and yet they gather in it at dawn. A spring does not lament that no one drinks from it, and yet, over time, every living thing finds its way there. Whatever is simply full exerts a pull that no strategy can ever imitate. Men, in the deepest layer of themselves, respond to this same ancient grammar. They do not fall in love with the woman who chases them. They fall in love with the woman who lives entirely, intensely, faithfully to her own rhythm, whether they are present or absent. What attracts them is the aliveness in her, not the expectation she carries toward them. Because expectation, however legitimate, however justified, lands on a man like a debt he must repay before the relationship has even begun. A woman who owes nothing and is owed nothing stands in a clearing of freedom that men recognize instantly, even if they cannot name it. They sense that with her, they will not have to perform, they will not have to compensate, they will not have to reassure, they will simply have to be. And in a world where almost every relationship demands a constant performance of worthiness, the possibility of simply being becomes a kind of rest. A rest they will not want to leave. There is something else that needs to be said, something rarely spoken, because it does not flatter the ego. This passage toward non-attachment cannot be willed. You cannot decide on a Sunday morning that starting tomorrow you will stop hoping. You cannot impose this transformation through discipline, the way you impose a diet on a reluctant body. Every attempt to force the passage produces the exact opposite of what you sought. It produces a tense, performative detachment that barely conceals the hunger still trembling beneath it. The real shift arrives differently. It arrives slowly, organically, often through wounds that we did not invite. The wound is what hollows the space. Disappointment is what extinguishes the illusions, one quiet candle at a time. The silence of holiday seasons spent alone is what transforms solitude from a punishment into a dwelling place. You do not become a full woman by reading books about fullness. You become one by walking, eyes open, through your own long nights, refusing to lie to yourself about what is happening. And this is perhaps why women in their 40s, 50s, 60s so often radiate this particular kind of presence. They have had the time, they have lived, they have loved men who could not love them back, and they have survived it. They have believed their lives were collapsing, and they have discovered that what was actually collapsing was only an outdated version of themselves. In the corner of their eyes lives a memory of crossing, and that memory is a beauty no youth has ever possessed. We have arrived at the quiet center of this reflection. What I am about to say, many women already feel somewhere beneath their ribs, without having found the words. Perhaps you are feeling it now. A man does not truly fall in love with a woman who waits for him. He may be flattered by her availability. He may enjoy her devotion. He may even return to her out of habit, or comfort, or convenience. But he does not fall. The kind of love that transforms a man, the kind that makes him reorganize his entire life to keep a woman in it, attaches itself only to what lives without him. It attaches itself to what he can sense he might lose. It attaches itself to what continues to exist, with grace, even in his absence. This is why every strategy of seduction eventually collapses on itself. Strategies try to provoke love, and love only happens where it is not begged for. So when I invite you to stop hoping, I am not offering a technique. I am offering a homecoming. Stop hoping, not as a way to manipulate the world into turning toward you, but as a way of returning, finally, to the only place that was ever yours, your own interior. And what you had been waiting for outside will begin, on its own, to organize itself around you. If these words have found something in you tonight, perhaps it is because a part of you was already prepared to hear them. Perhaps a quiet, unannounced part of you has already begun this journey without daring to confess it even to itself. Perhaps you are walking right now through that strange and luminous season in which the old hope is dying and something vaster is preparing to be born. If that is so, I want to leave you with this. What you are living is not a loss. It is an arrival. You are not hardening, you are coming home. Walk gently in this new season, take all the time it asks of you. And if this reflection has kept you company for a moment, let it linger, the way one allows a single light to remain a little longer in a room before the night fully arrives.